Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It has been a hot minute since I have done any turning whatsoever. I've just had 2 weeks off work and I've done loads of turning and I've really enjoyed getting back into it. So I thought it's time to do another turning video. For those of you who have followed me for my resin or my Jesmonite, I do also do turning. So hopefully you'll enjoy this too. And yeah, for anyone else who doesn't know, this is my workshop. Which I've got my sticker wall here and my lathe here, and I cannot show you that way because there's a mess. Anyway, I'm going to turn a lidded pot. I've never turned a lidded pot before. I did turn my favourite thing of all time a few days ago, which was a pot by itself, and I thought I would try a lidded pot. So I just found another YouTuber called Lisa Ramlow, and I was kind of binge watching her videos because I've only just come across her, and I watched a couple of her lidded pot videos which really helped me. Now this one here is unknown. I don't know what it is. Yeah, I don't know. This one here has got a sticker on it that says maple. So this is from Yandles and this is from an Instagram site, and none of their wood unfortunately came with names on, so I'm not up on my wood names and my wood grains. So if anyone knows, once this is turned, if you can let me know what this is. I have a feeling it might be maple because I made a pot the other day and everyone said that was maple, and this looks very similar. Very similar. Anyway, I'm going to get the large one on the lathe and yeah, let's go. So I am a beginner wood turner. This is probably, I want to say, my 8th or 9th project that I've ever undertaken by myself. So please do not see this as an instructional video. I cannot be responsible if anyone gets injured after thinking this is the way to do it. I just do what I know and I'm as safe as I possibly can be. I'm wearing my shield, my eye goggles, and yeah, I'm definitely following all of the safety advice that was given to me. So I am using Carbide wood carving tools. So they are what I learned on and they are all I know at this point. One day in the future, maybe I will try traditionals, but I have got some exciting news regarding those tools and this lathe. I have purchased a new lathe and that will be with me hopefully this week sometime, and I've also purchased some brand new Carbide tools. Now this lathe is going back to the original JP Woodwork who gave it to me in the first place, so massive thank you to JP for getting me started on this lathe. I have really appreciated my time that I had with it, but it is actually going back to JP so that somebody else who wants to start wood turning can actually get their chance now to start. My sister came to visit last week and she also absolutely is she's an absolute natural on the lathe. So she's got one too. We've both bought exactly the same lathe and hers also arrived this week. So these tools that I'm holding in my hands right now were given to me by Dale over at Maple Tree Studios. Dale, if it's okay, I am going to pay it forward and these tools will go to my sister with her new lathe so that they can also be used again by somebody just starting out. So again, massive thank you to everyone who supported me in me starting out on my wood turning journey, and everything is going to a new home that's going to enable starters and beginners to get back on. Well, I mean, I'm still a beginner, but you know, but yeah, so a massive thank you. Right, as I said at the beginning, I did lose footage of me making the lid, but this is what you're watching here is pretty much how I made the lid. I put the piece of wood on the lathe and I carved out the back, just as I'm doing here, to enable me to flip it round and make the lid also. The one thing to say is that this pot you're looking at right here, right now, when it came to getting the lid on, I had to rack my brain around how I was then going to make them match up in size and all of that jazz. So I sanded it from the lowest grit possible because I'm still very new. So I do start at a low number. I start around 180. In fact, I think I started on this one. In between each sand, I wipe them over with methylated spirits, and that's just to get rid of all that excess dust. And then after the methylated spirits is done, then I use sealer. I use sanding sealer before I move on to Yorkshire grit. After Yorkshire grit, I then used the Wood Wax 22, and here you see me using a very handy paddle that I actually bought from Nick the Flaming Turner. So that has just been such a cute little tool for me to use. It's really helpful. I'm really happy at this point because this was only after, I think, 100 grit. I felt like it was actually quite smooth for me because, again, I'm a newbie. So yeah, I was quite happy that it was so smooth at this point, and I knew that by the time I'd finished sanding for the next hour and a half and using Yorkshire grit, then I would be having the most smoothest pot I've ever made. I was in love with this pot at this point. After the Yorkshire grit and the wax, it honestly came up so shiny. I couldn't believe that I'd actually produced something quite so shiny. And I think, well, I know it's because I spent time on it. I did spend a solid hour and a half sanding this and using the grit and really getting as much of a shine as I possibly could at this stage. This is where Claire's Crafty Corner, do not do what I do. Try and do it right the first time. I ended up getting the lid to the point where it fit. It fit so snugly. I was so impressed. I was like, I've done it. I couldn't believe I'd done it. I was just so impressed that my very first lidded pot actually fit. The lid fit. It was a snug fit, didn't just fall out. What I did then was I wanted to bring them back into a straight line. I got so obsessed with the straightness. I wanted the straightest possible pot that I've ever made. And I became obsessed by the fact that it needed to be straight. I didn't want it rounded in any way. So I started to carve the side. I put the lid on. I brought the tailstock in to hold that lid in place. And I just went back and forth with the carbide tool. And I went back and forth with this tool, and my brain didn't actually stop me at any point and say, Claire, this is a hollow pot. This pot is hollow, you know? And we can all imagine what happened. I took away too much wood. The whole thing exploded. The pot flew into a billion pieces across my workshop, across the garden. Like, it actually made it out into the garden. And honestly, I had a meltdown. So I grabbed the pot that I made the other day. This is the pot I made the other day. You might have seen it on my Instagram. Stunning. And the lid that I started to carve, I figured the only way forward for me now is to make this lid fit that pot that I made a few days ago. Didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know how I was going to finish off the top because it ended up with this hole in the top, but I carried on then taking the tiniest amount of wood away from the lid, testing it out on the pot to see if it fit. I put it back on to take a little more away, put it back on the pot to see if it fit. And at this point, it didn't fit. It wasn't snug anymore. It still fit, as you can see here. It did fit, but it wasn't snug anymore. I'd taken off, and I mean not a lot, but I had taken off enough to not have it as a snug fit anymore. So now I knew I was happy. I finally had a lid and a pot that wasn't in a million pieces. I decided to carve off the top of the pot. Still wasn't quite sure how I was going to finish this up, if it would work or not. You know, my brain's trying to kind of get around what bit is attached to the lathe, and now I'm thinking, well, now I need to carve the side, but I don't want to carve it too much. And yeah, this battle against myself kind of just went on and on and on. And when I finally got rid of that tear out, the lid had quite a lot of tear out, and now it's too small for the pot. So now I'm thinking history is now repeating itself. I had to put the lid back on, bring the tailstock in, and carve the pot down to the same size as the lid. And this is what happened on the last one. This is where I went wrong. I was carving it like it was a solid block of wood, but it was actually an empty vessel. And it ended up being thinner than paper, that pot. So now I am going slowly. I am going steadily. At this point, I just didn't care about the tear out. I thought, I don't want this pot to explode on me. So 1 or 2 more passes with the tool and I am done. I am not touching it. I'm not going to risk it again. I'm just not going to risk it again. And yeah, so I did another one carve here. You can see I just took 1 more layer off and decided that is it. That's it. I'm not doing any more. And that is where I left it. And honestly, when it came to actually opening this pot back up to see how thin this pot ended up, I was so lucky. I was so lucky I did not have another explosion on my hands, because honestly, after the first one, and I had a major meltdown. Major meltdown. I cried for about an hour just out of pure frustration and like knowing what I'd done wrong and how it could have been avoided. So, yeah, all these little things. But looking at it now, I am happy. It is smooth, guys. It's so smooth. The lid is fitting on there perfectly. The pot and the lid are the same width. I was so happy. So that was it. That was all I needed to continue and not touch it again with a blade. So I went through the whole thing again, all the sanding, using the methylated spirits, using the sanding sealer, the Yorkshire grit. This is just after the Yorkshire grit. Look at this. Oh, I was so happy. That was before wax. So even before wax, it was shiny and I was happy as. And yeah, we are now finishing it off. Oh, I love it. At this stage, I'm so happy. All of that drama, all of my tears, all of my tears were so in the past. It's like ancient history now, because I knew I had created something that I truly loved and that I was proud of. And boy, did I learn lessons. I learned so many lessons on this one project. I know what not to do later. I have ordered a parting tool. So next time I make a pot, I'm hopefully going to make it out of one piece of wood, so I don't have to try and mix and match two pieces of wood. Yeah, so that was it. Then I just finished the lid, sanded it back down, being careful not to sand the sides too much, because I didn't then want to make the lid thinner than the pot, and it was almost like this vicious circle that I got myself into. But 4 hours, literally guys, 4 hours after putting that first piece of wood on the lathe, I finally had a pot I was happy with. It was finished. A little bit rough and raw in its natural state. The underneath of the lid probably could have done with some work. I don't know how to get, like, the top of the lid I was happy with, but then the underside of the lid, how do I then sand that and make that shiny and polishy? I don't have a monster jaw thing that I can put it back in. Look how thin that pot is. I think I was lucky. I think the turning gods were with me today. I was lucky. It doesn't fit. It's very loose. Look at this. Ay, ay, ay. But it's a lid that fits in a pot. And for my first ever attempt, I cannot complain. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I hope my talking has not irritated you, because I never know whether to talk or whether to put music on. So yeah, that is it. Say hello to the happy pot. He's winking at you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.